Hi everyone and welcome to day 6 of the 7-day stretch challenge. So today we're going to do a bit more on the legs and we're going to focus on 2 different muscle groups. So firstly the hamstrings and then also the adductor groin as well, which is obviously on the inside of your thighs. So if we cover the hamstrings first of all, this is another area that often gets tight when sitting at your desk all day. So if you imagine I'm sitting down now, when your knees are bent, your hamstrings are going to shorten, and then of course if we don't do anything to lengthen them out, they're going to get chronically tight, which is why stretching is so important in these areas. And tight hamstrings can cause certain problems such as injuries, and also it can limit certain sporting movements as well, which rely on good hamstring flexibility. So the first stretch that we're going to do is quite a simple one. And we're literally just going to do a sort of a slump forward to the floor. So we're going to start from our standing position and we're going to essentially roll forwards with our spine. But as we do that, I want you to engage your core so that as you flex your spine, you're not putting too much pressure on your back. So we want those tummy muscles nicely engaged. So squeeze just here. You're going to put your chin to your chest, and then gently round forwards through the chest to slump down, and you're just going to gradually lower yourself down as far as you can go towards the floor. Okay, and you should feel that in the hamstrings, but also you might feel it into the calves a little bit as well, and that's perfectly fine. Now if you can't get past your knees, then that means you've got exceptionally poor flexibility through the posterior chain, so it's definitely something that you'll need to work on. If you can't get past your shins, I would say that's still fairly poor, so you need to still work on that. So ideally you'll be able to at least touch your feet or get your fingertips on the floor. So I'll consider myself not too bad at this one, but some people can be really impressive by putting the palms of their hands on the floor. Well, obviously don't try and push further than what your limit is, because we obviously don't want to overstretch and injure ourselves as a result. So just go to the point where it's uncomfortable but not painful. And then after you've been in this position for a little bit, you'll find that the chain starts to release itself off a little bit as well. So you might find that you can just inch down a little bit further, like so. We want to make sure that we're not sort of bending our knees too much, okay? So we're not doing this in order to get down and to cheat. But also, if you are quite hypermobile in your joints, in your knee joints, you want to make sure that you're not locking them out as well, okay? So you don't want to hyperextend the knees like so. So we want to keep them as neutral as possible as we reach down. And because it's a static hold, of course, we're going to hold for at least 60 seconds. And then after we've done the 60 seconds, just gently come up out of the stretch. If we want another alternative to that, so for instance, if you've got a bit of a bad back and you can't face the thought of going down like that, then we can do another stretch, which is essentially we're going to put the one that we want to stretch in front, and then we're going to go down like that. So we're just going to almost sit down on a chair, except the chair's of course not there. So the leg that we want to stretch is going to be nice and straight. And you should be able to feel that quite nicely through the hamstring. You might feel it a little bit again in the back of the knee and in the calf, and that's fine. But if you do have tight calves and you want to increase the stretch in your calves, then you can just bring your toes up like so, and that's going to increase the stretch around here as we dorsiflex those toes. Again, hold for a minute or so and then gently come back up, and then obviously do the other side as well, because we're only stretching one side at a time. Now there is another hamstring stretch that we can do, which involves the PNF technique again. So for this we'll need an assistant, and the assistant's going to lay down on the mat, Okay. So what we're going to do is the person who's being stretched is going to be nice and relaxed. Okay. We're going to dorsiflex these toes to increase the stretch. And we're just gradually, very, very carefully, and we have to, of course, rely on our client feedback for this, okay? So we don't want to overstretch, and the person's just going to tell you when they feel like they reach that first point of stretch and they can't really go any further, okay? That's about there. So ideally, of course, we want to try and get to sort of 90 degrees on this one. So you can tell probably what she does for a living in terms of sitting at an office desk, okay? So obviously we've got quite short hamstrings here because we're only probably just over 45 degrees on this one. Okay, and then if we remember our muscle contractions, so we're going to contract our muscle for 6 seconds at about 20 to 30% of what we'll say our maximum effort is. Okay, and essentially she's going to be isometrically contracting her hamstrings, so she's just going to be squeezing her hamstrings as if she's trying to sort of flex her knee like that, but of course my shoulder is stopping her from doing so. Okay, so if you want to do that for me, so push, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, relax, take a nice deep breath in and out. Okay, and then we're going to move sort of to the next point of stretch, so again let me know about there, yeah? Okay, and then we're going to do our next contraction, so yeah, push, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, relax, take a nice deep breath in and out. We of course want to make sure that the knee is completely straight, because a lot of people will try and compensate by doing that to sort of soften the chain. Don't want to do that, okay, just go to the maximum that they can possibly do while their knee is straight. Okay, and then we're just going to do our third and final contraction, so we're going to come up. Let me know when, about there, yeah. Okay, and then push one last time. Again, remember we don't have to do 3 contractions. You can do up to 3, but if you feel like you're getting to your limit after 2 or even 1, okay, that's it, relax. Then of course don't go up that far. Okay, so we've done our 3 contractions, so now we're just going to hold this position for 20 seconds. So I won't do that now, but you obviously know what to do. Okay, thank you very much. Now, if you don't have someone who can sort of do that with you, you can still do it yourself. So there is an alternative that we can do. So for this, I'm using a strap, but you can use the longest towel that you have, or you can, or something along those lines. Okay, I wouldn't use a resistance band personally for this, because the resistance band will just stretch a bit too much, and therefore you're not going to have a firm anchor for your foot. But essentially what you're going to do, you're just going to put the strap or towel, whatever you're using, around the foot that you want to stretch. You're going to lay back, and then of course you're going to find the first point of stretch, do your contraction. So this time, instead of using the partner, you're contracting the hamstring against the resistance of the strap, and then relax, take a nice deep breath in and out. So it's exactly the same movement, but you're just doing it as an alternative on your own. Now it will have to be quite a long towel or strap or something, because as you can see, I'm sort of starting to run out of space with this one, okay? And also, as before, make sure that you're not bending that knee. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the groin stretch that I want to do. So the groin often gets tight as well. So often this is down to our standing posture. So for instance, when we're standing and we have this anterior pelvic tilt due to shortness and tightness in the hip flexors and the back muscles, so for example the erector spinae,
then that's going to send the pelvis forward, and of course that can be down to, of course, weak abdominals and glute muscles. As a result, when we have this anterior tilt, everything starts to rotate inwards. So our femurs, our thigh bones tend to rotate inwards like so, and everything basically gets shortened. So obviously we already know that our hip flexors are shortened, but because the glutes aren't activating, again I talked about this sort of knock knee stance in an earlier video, then we get all this internal rotation and we get a shortening through the groin muscles as well. Plus the fact that we use our groin quite a lot in sporting movements, and we obviously want flexibility in the groin to avoid having a muscle tear or something like that, because of course we don't want to do explosive movements if the muscle isn't flexible enough. So I'm just going to take you through a few stretches in order to release off the groin. Okay, so the first one is we're going to stand with our feet just over shoulder width apart, feet sort of facing forward, and then we're just going to move over onto one knee. So we're going to lean onto one knee, and you should feel the stretch just here. We don't want our feet to be rotating out like that too much, because otherwise we're not going to stretch as much, because we start to externally rotate through the femur slightly, and therefore we're not going to get as much of a stretch. So that's why we want to keep our feet facing forward. However, if you did want to get sort of into the the medial hamstring, so this sort of inner hamstring, you could sort of move out a little bit like that if you wanted to as well. Okay, but for the most part we're going to be keeping our feet facing forward, and then of course we'll go and do the other side as well. You'll probably find, again, like with most stretches, that one side's tighter than the other, so just make sure obviously you spend a bit more time releasing off the tighter side, and then we're going to come out of that. I'm also going to give you a PNF stretch for the groin as well. So for this one, this is called the frog stretch. We're going to go down onto the floor. Okay, we're going to have our exercise mat here, and we're going to start off with basically our thighs, our legs as wide as we possibly can. So obviously we're going to be lengthening out through the groin as we do this, okay? So we want to get that maximum comfortable stretch. And what we can do to increase that stretch is that we can just gradually push our bum backwards. So if you want to just pan round with the camera just so you can see from the side as well. Okay, so you can do this stretch without PNF just by statically holding like so, and then again you can increase by pushing your bum slightly further back, and then sort of gradually widening your legs apart a bit more. But if you wanted to do the PNF version of that, then obviously we'll introduce an isometric muscle contraction. So essentially we're going to be contracting our groin as though we're trying to squeeze the legs together like that. So it's going to be that sort of movement, except of course the floor is going to be blocking us, so we won't be able to actually have that movement take place. Okay, so we're going to find our first point of stretch. We're going to squeeze our legs together for that 6-second hold. And relax, take a nice deep breath in and out. And then gently, of course, we can then gradually go a little bit further with our legs. So the new point of stretch. Then of course we repeat our 6-second hold. Relax, take a nice deep breath in and out. And then of course we can go up to 3 times with our contractions. Of course we don't have to go and do that many. And then of course just be very careful when you come out of this stretch, after you've done your 20-second hold at the end. Okay, and then that's your stretch done. So there are your stretches for today. Again, comments, let me know how you got on, and if you want to, of course, be entered into the prize draw for the gift voucher. But then also, preferably, if you can share these posts to your friends, and also if you can tag your friends in a few of the comments, just to increase the amount of people that we can get involved, then that'll be great.